Hey everybody! So today we're going to be coloring this cute CC Designs image, Lolli Beatrice, and I thought I would share a little bit this time about how I actually decide to make a card, and I actually start by picking out the stamp. If a stamp is not inspiring me, I'm never going to be able to color it, and it's never going to work out for me. So I pick out the stamp, and then I decide what kind of paper I want. And so I wanted something fun and bright this time. So I picked up this Echo Park Hello Summer paper with all the flowers on it, because there's lots of bright, fun colors, and I knew I would have fun with it, and it could look cute when it was all finished. And here is the finished card. And I've added other papers from the same line to give it some more color on there. So I've already stamped my image on 80-pound Solar White Neenah cardstock. So let's get started. Okay, so I have my piece already cut out and stamped, and I'm going to use for her skin E21, E00, and E000. And I always start by coloring light to dark. And so I'm going to start with E21, and I want my girl, this lollipop here is going to shade part of her face on this side, so she's going to be lighter over here. So I'm going to start with my E21, and I'm just going to, the first time around, I'm just going to very lightly, and I'm just barely touching the paper with my pen on the tip. I'm just going to go around her whole face. Get a little bit here in her ear. And I'm going to do the same thing for her chin. And then for this side of her face, where the little lollipop is, I'm going to kind of brush it out just a little bit. And I'm just flicking it so my pen touches down next to the lollipop, and then I lightly stroke it out to her face a little bit. Like that. And then I'm going to grab E00. And when I use my E00, I touch down on the color I just laid down. So I'm going to put my pen down on the E21 and brush just lightly over that line and pull it out into the white space. Like that. And there is still a line showing, but that's okay because I'm going to go over it again later. Then I'm going to grab E000 and again lay it down where you already put ink down last time. So you're going to lay it down on your E00 and you're going to very lightly brush out. So I'm pulling the ink away from the other ink. And I'm just going to fill her whole face in, just like that. And it looks still blotchy, but that's okay because we're going to go in and we're going to go over it again. But I want to give her some cheeks, so I'm going to do that with R20 and R30. So I'm going to go in and I kind of decide where I want my cheeks to be, and I want them to be a little bit right here underneath of her eye. So I'm just going to brush my R20 right on like this. Same for this side. Like that. And then I'm going to grab R30, and I'm just going to lightly go over the edges, but I'm still laying down my pen just lightly on top of the R20, and then brushing it away from the R20. Like that. And see how blotchy it still looks, but that's okay. I'm going to go back in, I'm going to start again with E21. And on her cheek over here, I'm going to, again, pull away from the lollipop. So I'm going to lightly put my pen down and brush it away from my lollipop. Like that. And then I'm going to grab, because this side, I want it to be lighter, I'm going to go with E00. So I'm going to grab my E00, and I'm going to, again, start right here on the edge of her face, and I'm going to lightly brush my E00 right halfway across of her face, clear over the cheek. And I'm going to go ahead and do down here on her face by her mouth again. And then I'm going to go ahead over here where I did her cheek a little bit darker. I'm going to grab just the edge of that and pull it along. Get her ear, don't forget that. And now I can hardly see any of my lines up here towards the top of her hair, but I'm going to fix just a little bit I can still see with my E000. So with my E000, I'm going to start over here where my lollipop is, and I'm just going to lightly brush clear to the middle of her face. And same for this side, I'm going to pull clear from that side and brush clear over and cover up her entire face. Like that. And then if I wanted to, I could go back later and you can darken up her cheeks as dark as you wanted. But I also want to get her neck, so I'm going to go ahead and lay down my neck. So I'm going to do just a little bit on this side where I want it to be darkest, underneath her chin. Let's get her hands down here. And then she's got a little hand right here. And then I'm going to do E00 next. And these are such small spaces, I'm not going to go with the lightest color. I'm just going to use these two and fill them in. And while I did those, I was checking out her face to see how well her cheeks were turning out, and I decided I wanted to add a little bit more pink in there. So I'm going to go back with my R20. Brush and make them a little bit darker. I want to be a little bit pinker. Same for this side. And again, my pen is just lightly brushing on the paper. And then I'm going to go over that with R30 to soften my edge. I'm just going to very lightly touch the R20 and then brush over away just a little bit with the R30. Same with this side. Again, just the edges. And then to blend the whole thing together, I'm going to grab my E000 again. And this time I'm just going to go over the cheeks just a little bit. Just like that. Okay, so next let's work on her hair. And I started out with her hair and I was kind of undecided on how to do it because she doesn't really have a part on here. So I started out and I put a part down the middle of her hair and I kind of fiddled with it a little bit and I didn't like it. So I'm just going to make her bangs kind of go across and her head go across without there being a part here, and making her hair go this way and that way because it looked really silly when I got finished. Okay, so I'm going to start with my E37 to start with, and I'm just going to lightly flick down from the top. So I'm just going to put my pen tip just barely onto the paper up here at the top of this line, her line that starts, and I'm just going to give it a few flicks. And I'm not going to worry that there's some white left because I'm going to go back again later and add some more, but I'm just going to lay down my base color first so I can kind of get started and then add a little bit later. And I'm going to be careful down here by my lollipop. And remember, I've made her darker on this side of her face, so I'm going to make this side just a little bit darker. And I'm just going to continue doing that all the way around on her hair. Just adding some shadows, some dark spots. Go down this side. Like that. And then I'm going to grab E35 and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to start at the top of her hair and just pull down. And see how I covered up those white spaces? So I wasn't too stressed about leaving some white in there, and you can leave even more if you want. And again, just continue all the way around. Trying to be careful not to get any on the lollipop. And I'm kind of doing my flicking. When I flick, I put the tip of the pin down, and then as my arm moves up like this, the pin my hand automatically lifts the brush up just a little bit. So I'm not laying down a thick line at the very tip part. Okay, and then I'm going to put that one down. I'm going to grab E33, and again, you're just going to do the same thing. So I went up here at the top, and I started up here at the top, and I'm just going to pull down past the other two colors. And I'm still leaving some white in there because I want to add my lightest color. But the white area there kind of gives her a little shiny area on her hair. And then we're going to finish it off with E31. And I'm just going to lightly flick right over the top of that white. And you can still leave a few little white spaces in there. It kind of gives it a highlight in there. Like that. Or you can color it all in too. That looks great when it's colored in. And then I like to go back and add some darker hair streaks again, so it looks like there's little hair strands. So I've grabbed E37, and I'm just going to very lightly go in and just add a few little streaks, like she had some hair strands showing up. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go up from her bangs. And when I normally color, I spin my image all over the place. It doesn't just sit in one space. I just try to keep it straight for the video so you can see. And I'm kind of thinking it needs a little bit more over here on this side. So I'm going to go over here by the bow and just add a few more. Maybe up from the bottom here. Like that. But you can put as many or as few as you want to put in there. And then she's got these cute little piggy tails up here. And I think I'm going to add some color. I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm going to go with E35 for those. And I'm just going to go right over the top of the line. Whoops. Like this. And just give her some hair in there. And that's her hair. Okay, next we're going to work on her hair bows and the top part of her dress. And for that I've used R29, R27, and R24. So I'm going to start by doing her hair bows first, and I'm going to start with R29. And for each little hair bow, I went in and I just gave it a little dab down here where the knot is. Like that. And same thing for this side. Just a little bit. And then I grabbed R27. And again, I remember I go over the color I just laid down, so I'm going to add just a little bit more on top of that one and just go out past it just a little bit. Because the hair bows aren't very big, so you don't want to go too far. And same with this side. And then I'm going to finish those off with R24. So again, I'm going to go over the colors I just laid down. I'm just going to lightly brush right over the top. Like that. I'm going to get this side. Like that. Makes them a little shiny at the ends. Next we're going to do the top of her dress, and I did red on her sleeves, this little bodice thing right here, and then the bow in the back, and then I made the bottom part green. So I'm going to start with the R29, and I'm going to get where I want it to be darkest. So I want it to be darkest on this sleeve that's touching her dress, like this, and then I'm going to go down this side just a little bit, and I'm going to let her neck cast a shadow onto her bodice of her dress. And then I want it to be, remember, shinier from over here. So I'm going to put my shadow on my sleeve on this side of her sleeve. And then just a little bit on the back, because there's a little bit of her bodice showing, just a little bit right there. And then let's get the inside of this bow, like that. Maybe just a little bit of the bow down here at the bottom, like this. And then I'm going to switch to R27. And I'm going to brush right over the top of that color I just put down, but I'm going to add just a little bit more. Same with the sleeve. Brush just a little bit on R29 and pull it out here into the middle. And let's get this bow. But I'm leaving a little bit of white on there so I can add some more of that R24. And then I'm going to use this as my shadow color on the very tag of the tie of the bow. I'm just going to run a little bit, and I'm just barely touching the paper with my pen. And then I'm going to grab R24 and I'm going to fill the rest in. So again, you're going to brush over the R27. Just very lightly pull it up here to the end of her sleeve. Same for a bodice. And for her little sleeve, brush it clear over here to the side. Get this bow. And then I just have a little bit left of her bow right here, the little tie, so I'm going to be really careful and just barely touch my paper. Try not to get outside the lines. And that's the top part of her dress, so now let's do the bottom part. Alright, for the bottom part of her dress, we're going to use YG03 and YG01. So I'm going to start with YG03, and again, you're going to put down where you want it to be darkest, and down here underneath where the stick is, it's going to be dark, so I'm going to color that in. And then up here, right here, she's got just a little bit of her dress showing in between her shoe. So I'm going to give it a little dab right underneath the stick, but still leave a little dab of white right there. And then for this side, I'm going to go right along her dress. Oh, and right there I forgot her sleeve. So we'll get that in just a minute. But I'm going to go right along the sleeve right here, like that. And then right here on the back of her dress, I'm going to go right along the edge of her sleeve and the edge of her shoe. And leave just a little bit of white right here. And then I'm going to grab YG01 and I'm going to fill the rest of the white of her dress in. And just very lightly go over the YG03 and pull that right up here into the white. Like that. And I want it to be a little bit darker still down here, so I'm going to go back and add another little bit of the YG03, and I'm just going to darken it up just a little bit more. And then I'm going to blend my line with YG01. Okay, let me grab the reds real quick, and then we will do the rest of her sleeve. Okay, so I've got my reds, and I'm going to start with R29. I'm going to get this little sleeve I forgot right here. And I'm going to do just down here at the bottom of her sleeve, and right up along her shoe, like this. And then I'm going to get R27, and I'm going to add a little bit more, but I'm going to put that right down on top of the R29. And I'm going to leave just a little shiny white spot there so I can put in the R24. Okay, so now we're going to work on our shoes, and for that we're going to use E44, 43, and 42. So I start out with E44, and I want her shoes to be darkest on this shoe down here at the bottom, and on this shoe over here on this side. So I'm going to take my E44, and on this shoe I'm going to lightly brush it just up to that little check mark thing, this little number sign. I'm going to go down, get the bottom of her shoe down here, and just go about halfway up on that little number sign. And then down here on this shoe, I'm going to do just a little bit down here. Like that. And then I'm going to grab E43. I'm going to add this on top, so I want to go over the top of my E44 just a little bit. So I'm just going to lightly brush the edge of my E44 and add E43 right on top of it. And then the same thing for the shoe. And then I'm going to grab E42, and again I'm going to lay down my pen on top of the E43, and I'm going to lightly fill it in. Now I'm going to go down for this one again. I'm going to go down here at the bottom and brush it up and soften those lines just a little bit more. And sometimes I'll go pull the other direction and pull from the light color down to the dark color, and that kind of pushes the dark color back a little bit. So after I went over that a couple of times, I'm now going to do the top part of her shoe right up here. And because I colored this color down here twice, this color will be a little bit lighter than this bottom one. But you can also go back over this and darken it just another shade darker. Like that, if you don't think it's dark enough for the comparison to the little top part of her shoe here. Okay, so let's go work on our lollipop now. Okay, so for our lollipop we're going to use Y15 and 13, and then for the stick I'm going to use E41 and E40. So let's start with the stick. And I'm going to start with E41, and I'm going to add where I want it to be the darkest, and I want it to be darkest at the bottom part of the stick, so this side. So I'm going to go ahead and grab E41, and I'm going to go right up here at the top and add a little bit extra right here, where the little lollipop would cast a little bit of shadow, and then carefully go around her fingers. And then down here at the bottom, just a little bit like that. And I also did just a little bit right next to her hand and next to her shoe, because her hand's going to cast just a little bit of a shadow onto the stick. And then I'm going to grab E40, and I'm going to color the rest of that in. So I'm just going to brush lightly over that white that I left. And it's not very much, but it's just a little bit. And then if you wanted to darken it up even still more, you'd go with E31 again, or sorry, E41. And you would just lightly brush down and add some more shadows where you wanted those to be. Like that. And then for the lollipop, I did Y15 first. And what I did is I wanted there to be shadows inside the little circles. So I took my pen and I just went like this around in that circle. And then I just followed it out. Whoops. It's hard to stay in the line standing still going in a circle here. So all the way around like that. And then I went with the Y13, and I wasn't worried about blending the lines so much, so I just took my pen and I colored over the whole lollipop. like that. And then I wanted it to still be darker still, so I went back with my Y15 and I started over. And I just followed the circle. And again, when I colored by myself, I moved the circle around with me. It was easier to stay in the lines. And then I went back over it again with Y13. So again, I didn't worry about too much blending. I wanted that shadow to be able to see it still, but I just wanted the lollipop to be a little bit darker yellow, more bright to match the paper. And I just colored over the whole thing like that. So let's do her shadow next. Okay, for the shadow, I'm going to use B quadruple 0, the colorless blender pen, and for the ground, I'm going to use W double 0 and W1. So to do the shadow, I'm going to start with B quadruple 0. And I'm going to say, I want her to be sitting on the ground, so I'm going to say the ground's going to go to where this dress little floopy thing is right here. So I'm going to start above that with my B quadruple 0, and I'm going to lay my pen, I'm going to kind of hold it like sideways so it has more of the pen end is touching the paper, not just the tip. I want maybe half of this pen to brush away from her. So I'm just going to lay it down, and I'm just going to take my pen and brush it away, and it's touching just before the line. And if your pen is not, if it needs refilled, now's a good time to refill it so that you have lots of ink in there. It works best if your pen is really wet. I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm just going to brush away from her. I'm going to get up here in her hair. And since it's such a light color, I'm just going to brush right over the top of her ponytails. And I'm going to go around to this side. I'm going to flip it around. And I don't know if you can see it a little bit, but I stopped with my line about right here. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing over here, but remember we have our ground. We decided this little flip on her dress is going to be the ground. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, oh, it's going to flip up about right here. So I'm going to do just a little bit of blue right here underneath of her hand. I'm going to do this whole area right here in between her face and the lollipop. And then I'm going to go underneath the lollipop, and I'm just going to lightly brush out. And I'm just kind of hitting the edge of, there's this little embossed line right here of that circle. And same thing over here. Going out here, brush over the top of the ponytail. And this one stops about right here. And then I still want to get up here by her top of her head. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to turn it, and I'm just going to brush up. Like that. And I know it's hard to see because it's so light, but it's there. And then I'm going to take my colorless blender pen, and I'm just going to go right over the top of the lines I just laid down. So I'm going to start over here by her dress. Remember the little whoop-de-doo where we stopped? And I'm just going to lightly brush out just a little bit past the end of the line. That'll soften that line, the edge of my line up just a little bit. And if it's very streaky, it will blend all the streaks together too. Like in here, it's kind of looking kind of patchy to me. So if I just go over it lightly with my colorless blender pen, that will take care of all of that. It'll just blend it all together into one. Okay, and that just gives her kind of a nice light blue halo around her body. And then for the ground, I went with W double 0. And again, I remember I want her dress to be kind of the edge of where she's sitting. So I stopped my blue right here. So I'm going to go ahead with my W double 0, and I'm just going to brush away from her body. Get up here in between her legs. Brush down here under her shoe. And go back around over here where we decided that the ground was going to stop right kind of underneath of her hand right here. And then I'm going to grab W1, and I'm just going to very lightly pull away from her body just a little bit. I'd say about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit less. Like that. But I kind of want to soften it up just a little bit, so I'm going to grab my W00 again, and I'm just going to brush right over the top of it and just go back out to where I was the first time I laid it down. And then I'll just soften my edge up just a little bit. Like that. Okay, so this time, well, let's do this one first. So I've got my girl here, and I use my Sharpie white paint pen to add some dots. So with your Sharpie white paint pen, I shake it before I use it, and I shake it with the lid on so that it doesn't spray all over my project. And then I just took my paint pen and I added some cute little dots to her bow up here, and it's kind of bulky at the end, so I just touched it just a little bit. Like that. And then I wanted to add some little dots to her cheek, so I went down here and went. But always shake your paint pen with the cap on. And then I also went and I added some stickles to her lollipop and let that dry. So also in your kit this time, the card comes with this little saying. It comes with the sentiment, but I stamped it on this little tag like this. And so I'm going to show you how I did that so you can get it onto your card. So I've got a piece of nonstick craft mat, and I've got my Stamp-A-Majig, which is just a piece of plastic and this little T-square thing. So I take that and I put it on. You want it to be so that this piece of plastic goes right into the corner of the Stamp-A-Majig thing. So I've got that, and I'm going to stuff it right up in the corner. Okay, so I've got my little stamp mounted onto my clear block here, like this. And I've got my sentiment ink of choice, which is VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And it just stamps clearer and crisper to me, so I use this ink to stamp all my sentiments now. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And I've got my Stamp-A-Majig thing in the corner. And I'm going to ink up my stamp. And I'm going to take, and I'm going to, just like I did the plastic thing, I'm going to run my stamp block. It's going to be right up against the edge when I put it down. So I'm going to stamp right down the edge in the corner, holding it firmly against there, and stamp onto my little piece of plastic, like that. And then I'm going to take my cute little, can't remember which one it was, tab sentiment piece, and I've got some repositionable tape here. I'm going to run that on the back of it. I'm going to stick it onto my nonstick craft mat. I'm going to take my little piece of plastic and I'm going to put it where I want it to be on top of my little tag. So if you want it to be up more, move it up here. If you want it to be down more, move it up here. But mine is kind of, the bottom of the tag is a little bit underneath the paper. So I'm just going to position it kind of in the middle-ish. And then I'm going to take my little Stamp-A-Majig corner tool and put it right back onto the piece of plastic so that it's set right in the corner right here. It's right up against it on both sides, the little T. And then I'm going to take that away from there. And I'm going to stamp my ink, my stamp up again. And I'm going to hold this down, and remember, you're going to slide it right into the T and straight down onto your sentiment piece, like that. And I let it dry a couple of seconds before I remove it. But for time's sake, you just pull it off here and ta-da, you have it perfectly placed on your little sentiment. And then after I let it dry for a little bit, I'll go back and I'll rub this repositionable tape off and put real tape on there so it'll stick to my card. But that is our card kit of the month this time, Lolli Beatrice. And thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.